Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to So You Want to Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Osmond. If you love podcasts, if you're passionate about your business, if you want to create and grow a podcast that will connect with your ideal customers, and you want access to education, to resources, and to other amazing business leaders and podcasters who can help you do it better every single day, then this is the podcast for you. 2018 is almost over. And most likely, it has you thinking very intentionally about what you want to build for your business in 2019. And if those thoughts are leading you to think about a podcast that could help your business make more money and connect deeply with potential clients, then I would encourage you to apply for my podcast supercharger course or my podcaster mastermind. You know me. You know I practice and preach creating a podcast that is authentic and builds deep bonds with listeners, and ultimately one that is profitable, productive, and enjoyable for you because it was crafted correctly from the beginning, launched to an audience you've already identified and built, and monetized in a way that supports your endeavors. And in the years that I've worked privately with incredible business owners, entrepreneurs, and podcasters just like you, I've had the privilege of seeing just how powerful it is to put the right clarity, focus, and intentional actions into our businesses. And most importantly, how doing so brings results well beyond our own expectations. This is why I'm opening up a new session of my 6-week live podcast supercharger course to 6 people who want to start a podcast. And I'm starting a mastermind group for existing podcasters who want to grow and have a trusted group of fellow experienced podcasters to lean on. And if you're done feeling the pain of a struggling podcast or feeling confused about what you should be focusing on when starting out, then go apply today. To find out more about the Podcast Supercharger course and apply, go to dannyosmond.com/podcast supercharger. To find out more about the Podcaster Mastermind and apply, go to dannyosmond.com/podcaster mastermind. Applications are being reviewed as they come in, and spots will fill on a first-come, first-served basis. Let's create some amazing podcasts in 2019 together. Have you ever heard the phrase, "You can't see the forest for the trees"? Well, today I want to talk to you about why that phrase, or as I like to call it, proximity blindness, is the very reason that you should always have outside eyes and ears, experts, coaches, masterminds, and consultants helping you with your podcast, your business, or whatever you're running. We all suffer from proximity blindness, this inability to see the forest for the trees. You need a bird's eye view to be able to have a good perspective on a problem sometimes. When you're too close to something, you may not be able to have that 30,000-foot view of things. That outside perspective is often crucial for you to find the truth. When you're so focused on the details of a situation, it's hard to see the big picture at all, or the bigger picture at all. In the sense of running a business, the various small, immediate problems, those fires every day, which must be dealt with, make it impossible to focus on or do anything about the larger problem, which is setting the smaller ones off, which means that you cannot effectively deal with the smaller ones since the bigger problem, the forest, right, will always be generating new problems. I found a similar saying, which I've cleaned up a little bit to keep our nice clean rating on this podcast. When you're up to your waist in alligators, it's hard to remember that you came here to drain the swamp. Now, we've heard that phrase a good bit in the last few years, which I won't comment on. But essentially the idea is that in order to get rid of the alligators, you need to drain the swamp. But you can't drain the swamp because if you stop fighting the alligators, they're going to eat you. They're going to bite off your leg. And in order to drain the swamp, you need to use all your attention and efforts and strength, which are currently being fully occupied in avoiding being eaten by alligators. But the swamp, the stinky swamp, is the real problem. And if you can drain that, well, then the alligators go away. So you're seeing the details or the problems or the information, but you do not recognize that there is something larger involved. You're only seeing the surface. Okay, but let's think about this in terms of the positive as well, growth. So rather than seeing only the little problems while missing out on big problems, what if the big things you're missing are actually opportunities or good possibilities or successful things? The trees seem simple and easy to deal with, so you aren't seeing anything else. And you might simply admire the trees and walk by something that's awesome or wonderful. Or you may cause a small problem to become a much larger one because you failed to realize that the trees were actually an entire forest. And this is where the coach, the consultant, or the mastermind can help you see the things you are missing. I want to leave you with the ancient parable of the blind men and the elephant. And as I'm not a literary scholar or expert on ancient parables, I'm bringing in my consultant, Wikipedia, to tell you more about it. So the parable of the blind man and the elephant originated on the ancient Indian subcontinent, from where it has been widely diffused. However, the meaning of the popular proverb differs in other countries. It's a story of a group of blind men who have never come across an elephant before and who learn and conceptualize what the elephant is like by touching it. Each blind man feels a different part of the elephant's body, but only one part, such as the side or the tusk. They then describe the elephant based on their limited experience, and their descriptions of the elephant are different from each other. In some versions, they actually come to suspect that the other person is lying, and they duke it out. The moral of the parable, though, is that humans have a tendency to claim absolute truth on their limited subjective experience, as they ignore other people's limited subjective experiences, which may be equally true. The earliest versions of the parable of the blind man and the elephant is found in Buddhist and Hindu texts, as they discuss the limits of perception and the importance of complete context. The parable has several Indian variations, but broadly goes as follows. A group of blind men heard that a strange animal called an elephant had been brought to the town, but none of them were aware of its shape and form. Out of curiosity, they said, "We must inspect and know it by touch, of which we are capable." So they sought it out, and when they found it, they groped about it. In the case of the first person, whose hand landed on the trunk, said, "This being is like a thick snake." For another one whose hand reached its ear, it seemed like a kind of fan. As for another person whose hand was upon its leg, said the elephant is a pillar, like a tree trunk. The blind man who placed his hand upon its side said, "This elephant is a wall." Another, who felt its tail, described it as a rope. The last felt its tusk, stating the elephant is hard, smooth, like a spear. Well, there you have it. If you think you might be suffering from proximity blindness, you might want to consider applying for my podcaster mastermind. You can apply at dannyosmond.com/podcastermastermind. So that's it for this episode. Until next time, have a wonderful week. Today's show was brought to you by ConvertKit, the only email marketing system you'll ever need. After 5 years with the email marketing provider that everyone starts out with, you know who I'm talking about, I was desperately searching for one that was simple, easy to manage, and affordable. ConvertKit easily stood out above the rest, and I've been ridiculously happy with them ever since I made the switch. Emailing my community and creating automation series for special resources has never been so simple. Whether you're ready to start your first email marketing setup or you're searching for a new provider, I highly recommend ConvertKit. Go check them out and other resources that I recommend at dannyosmond.com/resources. That's dannyosmond.com/resources.